everyone. Welcome back. This is Prologues, and I'm your host, Mary. And welcome to the first ever video version of Prologues. You can now watch this on YouTube if you'd like. I'm desperately hoping this filming and recording situation works, and that this is actually the first video episode of Prologue, so time will tell. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's something that causes me to have violent crying breakdowns regularly, and that is the concept of being a long-distance daughter, or someone in your family who has chosen to move away from where most of the family is located, your parents, your grandparents, siblings, etc., because you want something different in life and you're going to go get it. And it's about balancing your own ambitions with the pain of leaving loved ones behind, or at least leaving them geographically. It's going to be a doozy. I hope I don't start crying during this episode. We'll see. And it was inspired by the fact that I'm actually visiting home this weekend. So I'm recording on a Friday, and for Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to be at my parents' house. I'm very excited, but traveling back home always brings up a lot of emotions for me. And so I thought this would be the perfect time in order to get in the right headspace to listen to this episode, especially if you are also a long distance daughter. I want everyone listening to this to pause, go listen to the song You're Gonna Go Far by Noah Kahan, and come back. Get in that headspace. Maybe listen 2 or 3 times and really visualize, close your eyes and visualize all of the ways that your younger self would be surprised by where you are now. And think about the fact that your parents and loved ones are continuing to age and you're not there to see it. Cry to that while listening to that song once or twice, come back, and let's embark on this journey of an episode together. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page emotionally. Before we get into all of that, I'll do a couple quick life updates. I really only have 2, and that is 1, I need a new laptop, which feels pretty significant right now. I'm kind of pissed off about it, actually. And if you're watching on video right now, this is the laptop I'm referring to. I've had it only for 3 years. It's only 3 years old, and I feel like, yes, in the world of technology, things move at a lightning pace, and so 3 years is kind of old for a piece of tech, but it's also not old at all, considering how expensive Apple products are. So the camera on my MacBook has been broken for over a month, and so I have tons of Zoom meetings and like Google Meet face-to-face video meetings every single week. I have my therapy online, so I need a camera for that. There's just a lot that I use my webcam for. It's been broken for about a month, so I've either not had video for all of my meetings and therapy sessions, or I've done it on my phone, which isn't great quality and presents loads of other issues. And I finally get around to actually making a Genius Bar appointment. I take my MacBook to the Apple store, and they're like, in my head, I'm hoping this is some browser setting issue that I'm not technologically literate enough to fix, even though I Googled it about 1 million times. I'm hoping it's something like that. Something silly, like, oh, silly me, I don't know computers, they could fix it and send me home. They come back and they're like, $600. Or we'll give you $600 of trade-in credit for the laptop because everything else about it works. And the laptop I would get if I were to replace this one is $1,200. So I'm like, well, I could spend $600 to replace my 3-year-old MacBook's camera, or I could spend $600 and use a $600 trade-in value and get a new one. So I'm going to get a new one, and things could be worse, so I don't know why I'm complaining so much. It's just so inconvenient because they also said if they fix it, they have to take my laptop for 7 to 10 business days. And I'm just feeling very disenchanted with Apple at the moment, because I also have an iPhone 14 Pro Max, so very new. Not a 15, which is the newest, but very new, right? The second the iPhone 15 came out, my iPhone 14 Pro Max starts acting up. It starts bugging like never before. I swear to God, the camera quality looks worse. My video quality looks worse. It's buggy, it's slow, my apps keep crashing. What is going on? They cannot keep getting away with this. There's no reason why a 13-year-old MacBook and a 1-year-old iPhone should be having this many issues. So will I keep buying Apple products? Unfortunately, yes, because I bought into it. Consumer marketing has worked on me, and I've totally bought into it. But will I complain? Also, yes. My only other life update is that I'm getting powder brows next week. I've been wanting to get my eyebrows tattooed for a long time because I just feel like they take up so much time in my makeup routine. I have a 3-step eyebrow process, and I would love to streamline that. Love how I'm telling you guys this when literally last week I got on this podcast and said I needed to cut out unnecessary habits this fall because I'm spending too much money on like nothing. Well, that can start after I get my powder brows. There's this artist in Alexandria that her Instagram looks incredible. Her work and her portfolio look phenomenal. So I'm getting powder brows done next week. I'm really excited. I'll let you guys know how that goes. Real quick, let's do some culture club. I have 3 things to share. Go me. I'm actually consuming things and can share them with you guys. I have a book, a TikTok account, and a podcast. So first off, the book. It's called The Late Mrs. Willoughby by Claudia Gray. I think this might be a series because I swear to God, I've read another book that I think is in the same universe a couple years ago. But it's a murder mystery set in the world of Pride and Prejudice. So the book follows the fictional and obviously non-canonical son of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy as he investigates a murder. And there's friends and there's drama and there's it's actually really good. I just started it, so I'm not that far into it. I'm like a third of the way into it so far, but it's charming. It's very British. I love British humor. And anything that gives me Pride and Prejudice themed warm and fuzzies, I just love. I have been reading some self-help books, but I feel like with self-help, I want to finish them before I recommend them to you guys because some self-help is really great and then some self-help seems completely whack to me. So I'll update you later about those. But The Late Mrs. Willoughby, such a cute, charming little book. Love it. I have a TikTok account that I discovered this past week because I was looking up grooming tips for Fergus. And I came across this account called Girl with the Dogs. And she's a dog groomer. And it seems like her whole shtick is that she doesn't reject dogs that other groomers might, whether they're very complicated dogs to groom because of their fur, or maybe they have aggression issues or bite histories. She just takes on all of these clients. And the videos are long, like her TikToks will be 6, 7, 10 minutes long because she goes really in depth and she provides like educational material about the dogs she's grooming as she grooms them. And there's something about watching endless dog grooming videos that is so addictive. I will get stuck on her page and I'll just scroll and scroll and scroll watching her groom all these different dogs. I'm not even picking up that many tips at this point. But it's just fascinating. I've really been loving that TikTok. It's very wholesome, you know? Like if I'm going to get on TikTok, which already usually makes me feel like shit, I want to follow wholesome accounts and curate my FYP to be just a positive place. And I feel like dog grooming is a positive side of TikTok. I highly recommend. Okay, last thing for Culture Club. I have a podcast episode. It's actually one that I appeared on. So when I was in LA at the start of September, I recorded an episode for Real Pod with Victoria Garrick Brown, and it actually came out last week. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be last week. I listened to it, which I wasn't sure if I was going to because I thought maybe I would have too much anxiety listening to my voice and my storytelling and my presence on another person's podcast. So I almost didn't listen to it, but I did. And I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. She's amazing. I loved Victoria. I'm so happy to have made a new friend in the industry and a new friend in LA. I had a great afternoon with her, and I actually really liked how the podcast episode turned out. So it's Real Pod, Victoria Garrett Brown. I'm sure you've heard of it, but I was just on an episode, and I would highly recommend it to all of you guys. And if you're here because you heard me on Real Pod and you came to check out my podcast, thank you. I'm so excited you're here. I love you. So now I want to get into the guilt of being a long-distance daughter. I hope you took my advice and you listened to that song or you could also go listen to Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. That's a good one too. I hope we're all in the same headspace now. And I'd like to get into this. This episode, like I said, was inspired by the fact that I'm going home tomorrow, but it's also inspired by the fact that recently I've just had a couple breakdowns about this concept because I realized that my move to Scotland is coming up sooner than I thought it was. I've been saying for the last several months, like, oh, next year, because we finally spoke and we decided on a time frame and something that worked for us. And we decided that over the summer. And at that point, it was a full year away. And so for the last 2 or 3 months, I've just been saying, oh, a year from now. It's actually not a year from now anymore. It's 9 months away. Much to my surprise, time is still moving forward. I'm moving to a different country in 9 months. That seems a lot scarier than saying in 1 year. If I got pregnant today, which knock on wood, please, Lord, let that not happen to me. But if it did, if I got pregnant today, I could theoretically have a baby by the time I'm moving to Scotland. The gestational period for a human child is how much time I have left before I move to a different country and leave the state that I've spent my entire life in. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a Virginia sweatshirt right now. I don't want to move too far because this chair squeaks, but I'm wearing one of my favorite Virginia sweatshirts because I love this state. I've lived in it my entire life, and I'm a huge Virginia fan. My whole family is here. Well, most of them. I have 2 brothers that live in different states, but my 3 other siblings, their families, their kids, my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my grandparents, everybody else lives here. And every friend that I have, pretty much, like 99% of all my friends, also live in Virginia. So the reality of what that means is hitting me, and I knew it would. I knew it'd always be hard. Now it's hitting me, and I'm realizing it's 9 months. And I've just been having a time with that. I think a lot about the fact that my grandparents and my parents are aging. I've lost both of my grandfathers in the last 6 years. My grandpa died in 2017, and it was really hard on the family because he was everything to us. He died very unexpectedly. He was still gardening and being active up until the night he died. He had a heart attack and he died in his sleep pretty much. So it was very unexpected and hit everyone really, really hard. And so now I still have my grandma on that side. She lives with my parents, or she splits time between my parents and my aunt. And then I have my gran, who is also a widow because my granddad died like a year after grandpa did, which was also, we knew that one was coming. He was sick, but obviously still very, very hard. Like, you can have time to emotionally prepare for someone's death years in advance. My granddad had Alzheimer's, so we knew for a long time it was coming. Still doesn't make it any easier. You can think that you can emotionally prepare for something like that, and maybe you can, but then when it happens, you still feel the same things. And so I have these 2 grandmothers. My grandma just turned 83 last week. I don't get to see them as often as I wish I could. I see my grandma whenever I go home to visit my parents, and it's a little bit harder to see Gran because she lives in an assisted living community in Virginia Beach, so it's a little farther away. They're getting older. My parents are getting older. My parents are in their 60s. Maybe that's a little bit old for parents, but I'm the 5th born in my family. I've 5 siblings, so I'm the 5th out of 6 kids. I think my mom had me, how old am I? I'm 25. So my mom had me probably at age 38 or age 39, which is kind of late. And now my parents are in their 60s, and they're very healthy. Like, as you guys know, they're big vegans, big hippies. They take care of themselves extraordinarily well. Their diet is practically perfect. Like, I've never, ever met people with a better understanding of nutrition and like with a more optimal diet than my parents. They also exercise a lot. Like, they really prioritize their exercise. They prioritize their mental, spiritual, physical wellness and health. They're the healthiest 60-something-year-olds I know. They're still getting older. You can't help that. You can't fight against that forever. I noticed a couple months ago, I saw my dad and I was giving him a hug goodbye, and he felt bonier. I could feel his collarbones touch my collarbones when we hugged. And I'd never felt that before. My dad is just getting thinner. My mom has noticed a few physical issues. She had an eye issue that she had to get taken care of because of old age. Not old. If mom and dad are listening, you guys aren't old. Love you. But older age, and there's not much you can do about that. Like, you can eat healthy, you can exercise, you can take care of yourself to the best of your ability. You're still going to have complications that come with getting older. It's inevitable. It happens to everybody. And I already only see my parents and my grandparents like less than 5 times a year anyway. And I only live 3 hours away. I live a 3-hour drive from my parents' house. And I prioritize going home. I go home every couple of months, but even so, that's what, like four times a year, 5 times a year. So what, am I just going to see my parents like 5 or fewer times a year for the rest of our entire fucking lives? Like, are you kidding me? How many times am I going to see my grandmothers before they're not here anymore? If I'm seeing them like even less often than I see my parents. And yeah, you FaceTime, you call, you keep yourself updated with all the family news, but it's not the same as being there. And at the same time, I don't want to be there. I could not be happier that my life led me away from Gloucester, Virginia, even though I love it. Like looking back now, as an 18-year-old, when I moved away to college, the only thing I wanted was to get out of that small town. And if you also grew up in a small town, you know what I mean. I feel like there's 2 types of people who were raised in small towns. The ones who stay there forever and the ones who cannot wait to get out. And I couldn't wait to get out. Gloucester now is a little bit bigger and it's more built up. There's like actual stores. There's an Ulta and a TJ Maxx. We have a Cookout and a Chick-fil-A. Like, you know, it's been built up more. But when I was growing up there, we didn't have any of that. It was like the only thing to do on a Friday night was go tailgate in the Walmart parking lot and see who else was walking around Walmart on a Friday night. You know what I mean? I know you know what I mean if you grew up in a small town. And I'm so glad that I left. I've never looked back. I've never, ever wanted to live there again. I can't. And that's on me then. Like, that's my choice. It was my choice to leave my hometown. It was my choice to leave the place where I could see my parents and my grandparents frequently, as much as I feel like they deserve. I chose to leave. And now I'm choosing to go even further. Instead of 3 hours driving distance, I'm choosing to live 6 hours by plane in a different country and in a different time zone. I'm choosing that. I feel so many things. I feel excited and I can't wait to go. Like, I have been looking at houses in Scotland so frequently lately. I go on rightmove.co.uk and I type in, 20-mile radius from Edinburgh. Here's how many bedrooms. Here's how big I want the backyard to be, the garden as they call it. And I'm just browsing, and Matt and I aren't going to buy a home as soon as we get there, obviously, but I'm visioning, I'm manifesting, I'm like making vision boards, and I'm planning out what I want my future home's decor to look like. And I'm getting so excited to have a place that's my own. And like I said, we're still a bit of ways from that, but I'm getting so excited. I can't wait. We're going to Scotland over New Year's Eve. I can't wait. I'm going to Scotland next June to see Taylor Swift in Edinburgh. That was a whole thing. My God, you guys. I couldn't get Taylor Swift tickets in the US, okay? I tried really, really hard. And then I got to a point where I was literally considering paying almost $3,000 for resale tickets to see her in Philadelphia. And I didn't do that because I didn't want to travel to Philly by myself. That was like the main reason I didn't go, which is insane. Think about that. My first car cost about half of what I was contemplating spending on Taylor Swift tickets at see her in Philly. That wasn't going to happen. So I signed up for pre-sale in the UK after she announced the international leg. This is such a tangent, but please bear with me. I signed up for this international leg. I signed up for pre-sale in Ireland, England, and in Scotland, and I was willing to go further than that just to see. And I got randomly 10 minutes before tickets went on sale, I got off the wait list and I got a code and I was able to secure a ticket. And I bought a Taylor Swift ticket in June in Edinburgh next year, and I'm going to get on a flight and fly there by myself, haven't figured out anything yet, to go see Taylor Swift. And everything, like the ticket and then my flights there, it all ends up being way less than I was thinking about spending to go see her in Philly. I also have my outfit planned out. I have my Instagram captions planned out. Yeah, okay. Now I'm really getting off track. Point being, excited to go for New Year's Eve, excited to go next June, very excited to move next summer, very excited to buy a home there eventually, very excited for Fergus to come with us. So excited. And also, at the same time, I am racked with a horrendous amount of guilt because if I'm only seeing my parents 4 or 5 times a year now, I'm probably, if I'm lucky, only going to be able to see them twice a year when I move, if I'm lucky. And I'm the one making that happen. That choice has been up to me and me alone, and that's what I chose. And I feel like a horrible person. It's such a complicated feeling because I also know I have wanted to live abroad my whole life. I was a little kid dreaming about this, and I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, but I've always wanted to live in a different country, always. I think because I grew up in a small town where not much happened, and then you guys know, like, my community was even smaller than the small town. I think I just wanted the exact opposite of that experience, and in my head back then it was living in a different country, and I just attached to that, and I had no idea I was going to make it happen. And then fast forward 10 years, and I'm 21, and I'm meeting this guy, and I didn't want to fall in love with him. I actively did not want to fall in love with this guy. But our values completely aligned, our goals for our future lives completely aligned. Next thing you know, I'm in love. I'm moving in with someone. I'm getting married. And it just so happens that this guy is from Scotland. He wants to go back. He wants me to come. I'd love to go. I visit there over the summer. I fall in love with it myself. I can't wait. Next thing you know, we are actively planning our move to a different country in 9 months. And this is my lifelong dream. And if I don't go, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life because all I've ever wanted is to do what I have the opportunity to do right now. And if I don't go, I'm going to regret it forever. And if I do go, I am going to feel like the worst daughter alive because I chose to leave. And it's hard because that feeling isn't coming from my family or my parents. My parents could not be more supportive, honestly. My siblings are so excited for me. My dad has had this saying my entire life, whole life. He said, the only thing more sad than a child who leaves is a child who never leaves. Meaning, yeah, it's hard when your kids grow up and they move away, but that's not as hard as having a kid who has no ambition, who has no goals for themselves, who can't be separate from you, can't be independent. It's not as bad as that. So my dad, whenever I bring this up, he'll be like, the only thing more sad than a kid who leaves is a kid who never does. But he's saying it with like a choked up voice. And I'm like listening to it and I'm internalizing it and I'm feeling grateful that my parents are supportive and I'm choking up too because why is life so cruel that in order to have the thing you've wanted for your whole life, you have to say goodbye to everything you've ever known? Why can't you have both? Why can't I have both? I guess some people probably can have both. But right now, in this season of my life, I can't. And so I'm chasing my dreams. And I guess that means I'm going to see my parents, hopefully, twice a year for the foreseeable future as they continue to get older. I'm going to miss out on my nieces and nephews growing up. My nieces and nephews span in age from almost 10 months to 15 years old. I have 7 of them. 7 beautiful human beings who are learning about the world for the first time. My flesh and blood. I'm going to miss them growing up. And the worst part about it all, I think, is that there's no answer. The modern world has made it a lot easier. You know, we have FaceTime, we have Zoom calls, we can communicate, we can see people and their faces, and I can talk to anyone I want no matter when because I have a phone and I'm going to have an internet connection. So it's definitely easier than it could be, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for the fact that my parents and siblings are excited for me, one, because they're just excited that I'm getting something I want, but 2, they're excited because they have a place to stay if they want to visit the UK now. Like, my parents are already planning their own NC 500 trip because they helped me have ideas for how to plan my trip, and then they've seen the pictures and the videos, and they're so excited, and like, my parents are huge campers. That's all they want to do. So they've already said, like, yeah, when you move over there and you get settled, we're going to come, we're going to visit you, and then we're going on this trip because that sounds amazing. So I know that I will have visitors, and like all of my friends as well have expressed that as often as they're able to, yeah, they want to come, they want to stay, they want to have a free place to stay while they like explore other parts of the UK and Europe, you know, fine by me. And I'm really grateful for that too. But again, what is that going to be? Like once or twice a year? Maybe. And there's just no answer. There's no answer. I have to make the decision, and I did, and now I have to live with the consequences of my choice. All of that being said, I think it's necessary for people to do things like this. I think every family's got to have that one person who's not afraid to do something crazy and drastic because they have a dream for themselves and they want a different sort of life. I have several friends who are first generation here in the US. They wouldn't be here if their parents hadn't decided to do something that sounded crazy. If they hadn't decided to leave their world behind and strike out and find something new. And if I have kids someday, which I don't know if I will, but if I have kids someday, I'd rather raise them in the UK than raise them here, and their lives will be so much different than mine. And that would be something I'd be excited to give them. But that's all theoretical. But still, I do think you have to make choices like this in your life. And I know that a lot of y'all have experienced this too, because I get DMs sometimes from people saying, I have this amazing grad school opportunity across the country or in a different country. I've seen messages from y'all that have said, I have to move to a different climate for my mental health, but I'm leaving everyone I know behind. I have to do what's best for me, but it comes at this cost. So I know that a lot of you guys relate to that, and I'm going to tell you what I need to hear myself. And that is, your family wants you to be happy above all else. And if they are good people who love you, no matter how much it hurts to be distant from someone, at the end of the day, they just want you to be happy. My family just wants me to be happy. And if this choice means expanding my chance for optimal happiness, then they support me. And I have to live with that. I also think a lot about the fact that contemplating this decision wouldn't have even been possible for me a couple of years ago because my mental health wasn't in the right place. For a long time in my life, my mental health was so bad that I just genuinely didn't think I was going to live to see my 20s. I didn't think I needed to plan for the future or try that hard in some cases because I just assumed I wouldn't be around here to see it. And in the last couple of years, my mental health has gotten better because I've worked at it. I've worked to make my mental health better. And now I'm at a point where, I actively plan for the future because I feel better. It's just interesting to reflect and think about how this choice wouldn't even be like on the table for me a couple of years ago because there's no way I would have been able to handle it. So this move also symbolizes something positive because it means I'm in a good enough place to be able to do it. So that's a positive that I can remind myself of when I'm getting down. And I think I can also remind myself of the fact that proximity doesn't necessarily equal emotional closeness. And making this choice and moving somewhere else will give me the opportunity to provide my loved ones with cool experiences that they wouldn't have otherwise. Like I have people in my family and friends who probably wouldn't just decide to visit the UK on their own because it wouldn't make sense financially, or they just wouldn't know what to do. But if they can stay with me for free, that gives them a whole landing point from which to explore. And I can provide that. I can be a tour guide. I can introduce my loved ones to this like totally different culture and give them a cool experience. And that's good, right? I'm like convincing myself right now. That's good. And if I'm happier, I'm just trying to talk myself into this, you guys. If I'm happy and if I'm doing well in my life, that in turn will allow me to be the best daughter, the best friend, granddaughter, wife, the best person that I can be, because when I'm not doing well, that does affect my relationships. It affects everybody's relationships. So if I'm doing really well because I'm chasing my dreams, then I'll have more of myself to give to my other relationships. I think my plan going forward when I actually make this move, my plan in the 9 months leading up to this move is to make the most out of the time I have left with the people I love. That sounds so dramatic. Sounds like they're dying. The time I have left, but I need to make the most of it. I am planning a bunch of fun stuff this fall with my friends, this fall and winter, because these are my favorite seasons, and it is probably the last time I'm going to be experiencing these beautiful seasons in Virginia with my friends for a long time. I am prioritizing hanging out with people I don't get to very often, like friends who are a little bit longer distance, maybe spread out all over the state. I'm trying to keep up with them, make an effort to see them while we're still living in the same state. I'm prioritizing visiting my parents again and seeing my grandparents. I'm calling people more often. I'm like actually just reaching out and trying to catch up with as many people as possible. And I'm going to try to see as many people as possible, as often as possible before I embark on this move. I think my game plan when I do move is to try to set scheduled FaceTime sessions with people. I know that my parents have done this with some of my other siblings that have moved pretty far away. So whether it's a Sunday evening scheduled FaceTime call once a week, I call my parents, something like that, I think will be very helpful for me. And I think I also need to release myself from the expectation that my relationships with people here will look exactly the same as they did when I lived here. And that's hard. I think I'm going to get a lot of FOMO. I think I'm going to have a lot of FOMO. I've already thought about the fact that my friends, once I leave, they're going to make a group chat without me. Not maliciously, but because if they are making plans in the area, they're not going to want to make me feel bad by, making a ton of plans in a group chat and I can't go. So realistically, they're probably going to make a separate group chat when I leave. And I know that, and I completely understand why. Like, it makes total sense to only have a group chat with like the people in your immediate area. So if you're like, oh, just got off work early, can we go to happy hour? You know what I mean? People's lives are going to move on without me. I'm not going to be there to go to the birthday parties or the baby showers. I'm not going to be there to go to the random dinners with friends that end up lasting like way longer than you thought they would because everyone's just having so much fun. I'm not going to get to have movie nights. Like, me and some of my girlfriends are watching The Golden Bachelor together. We're just getting together every so often and catching up on the episodes. I'm not going to be able to do that. And they're all going to do it without me, which makes sense. Of course they are. I'm going to ask them though, and I don't think this has to be said, but just for my own sanity, I'm going to ask, hey, listen, you guys, I know you're going to have to make a separate group chat. Please do not stop using the one that I'm in. Please only use the separate one when you're making plans. Please keep all the normal life updates and day-to-day chatter in the one that I'm in, because I don't think I'm going to be able to handle the FOMO. So yeah, I just need to release myself from the thought that everything's going to be exactly the same. I'm not going to be able to talk to people as often. Even if I set regular FaceTime calls and updates, it's not going to be quite the same. There's going to be a time difference. It's a 5-hour time difference, which isn't the worst, but it presents some barriers. It's harder to talk to people. When I was in Scotland for a month, I noticed I got up in the morning, had to wait several hours for anyone to text me back. And then I would be sort of in my winding down, on my phone, catching up with people time of day while everyone else is still at work, still busy. By the time they're getting off work, they're ready to chat, I'm going to bed. I'm going to have to just get used to that and just understand that although there are barriers in communication now at this point, it doesn't mean that I'm actually growing apart from people. I am really hoping that moving away is not going to equal growing apart. I really don't want that to happen. And I'm also going to have to build a new community. I'm going to have to make new friends, which is terrifying. I have not had to make new friends in a while, and I'm not someone who makes friends easily. I was thinking about this the other day. I wish people would stop equating friendliness with being a good person, because I don't think I would consider myself to be a super friendly person. I'm a kind person. I'm not an asshole. I treat people well, but I'm not a very outwardly friendly person. I'm not the person who's going to start a chit chat with the cashier. I'm not the person who's going to, try to make a friend at the workout class. All power to those kinds of people. I love that. The world needs you. It's not really me. I am not walking through my day-to-day life thinking I could have a conversation with a stranger or I could make a new friend. I'm very guarded when it comes to new people in my life. It takes me a long time to open up to someone, and I keep my close circle of friends very, very close. So I'm not the most friendly person on the planet. Again, I'm a nice person. I'm a kind person. That's not the same thing as friendliness. And I'm going to have to make new friends, and that thought really intimidates me. Really intimidates me. But I think I'm going to have to do it because I'm going to need community. I'm going to need a support system and people to just laugh with and be in a group chat with and go to dinner with. Oh my God, I just realized Scotland is not going to have the caliber of Mexican restaurants that I'm used to. So what am I going to do when I want to go get chips and salsa and a margarita with the girls? I'm going to need people around me, and I'm going to have to forge those friendships, and that's fine. but I don't think it's going to take away the FOMO that I'll feel anyway. And I just have to accept that. I have to accept what this all really boils down to. The long distance daughter guilt. It all boils down to accepting the fact that you have to be a little bit selfish. I think the choice I'm making right now is a little bit selfish because it's prioritizing what I want, my dreams, my goals, over my relationships to an extent with the people I love who are currently close to me and will no longer be. It's a little bit selfish, and I have to get used to the fact that that's okay. I have to convince myself somehow that I'm allowed to be selfish when it comes to a dream I've had for my entire life. I don't think I'm 1,000% there yet, which is frustrating because I am 1,000% certain that this move is right for me. So I'm going to keep working on that. Hopefully I will have positive updates on that front for you guys in the future. But I just want everyone listening to this to know, if you're going through the same boat, that we're all in this together. And I don't think there's one right or wrong answer. And I don't think any of this is easy. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Prologues and for watching it if you're watching the video on YouTube. I hope some of you can relate to this, and if you can, I'd love to hear about it. You can write me a little note in the description of my episodes on Spotify specifically. There is always a question box. What did you think of the episode? And you can share your experiences. Share this episode with anyone you know who is also a long-distance daughter, who also feels a lot of guilt. You can always submit questions for upcoming Hey Mary episodes at theprologuespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying Prologues, please give the show a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps the show out a lot. And thank you so much to every single person who has already left a review. It genuinely helps the show so much. And it also really helps the show when you share to your Instagram story or you share with your family and friends. So thank you so much to anyone who has done that. I do have a merch update. I have just approved the samples, so that will be coming pretty soon, hopefully within the month. Hopefully, fingers crossed, but I will of course let you know. Follow me on Instagram if you don't already for merch updates. They will all be on there. And I really hope I see you next week. So thank you for listening. I'll catch up with you later. Bye.